In this video, we're going to learn about custom model validation with the validation attribute. Previously, we have talked about validation with data annotations. Data annotations is a built-in C# way to validate C# object. Right? You can specify the attribute on top of any property, and it's going to validate this property within the class. However, if you have slightly more complicated logic that requires to use multiple properties at the same time, then you might run into issues because data annotation is not enough to do that. Let's say you have a logic here that a position is actually required. That's fine. You can use the required attribute to do that. Let's do it right now. Okay. Now, if the position is manager, the salary has to be higher than 100,000. See, that's a logic that needs a combination of both the position property and the salary property. So how do we do this type of validation? We can still use data annotation, but the built-in attribute is not going to be enough. We need to create a custom validation attribute. So how do we do that? We can create a separate class. You can add a folder to include multiple this type of class, but in this video, I'm going to just create a class in the root folder here. And I'm going to say employee. I want to have this type of validation all starts from the class name that we are going to apply the validation attribute to. So I'm going to say employee, and then I'm going to say ensure salary. You can be more descriptive. You can say ensure salary for manager, something like that. I'm just going to say employee underscore ensure salary. Okay. And then over here, this employee underscore ensure salary has to derive from the validation attribute class. And this class is from the system.component model.data annotations namespace. Right? Don't do something like validate and then just go to this validate attribute. This is from the minimal APIs.extension that we just installed in the previous video. Spell the whole thing validation attribute. This is the class that you want to derive your class from. And then once you do that, go over here and do override. And then you see that you have two isValid method or function that you can override. Let's override the one with the second parameter, the validation context. And now let me minimize this solution explorer here, and we can delete this, and then let's try to use the validation context here. So from the validation context, you can access this object instance. So what do we mean by the object instance? The object instance refers to the object that the validation attribute is applied to. So for example, we are going to apply this attribute to the employee object. Therefore, this object instance refers to that specific instance that this one is applied to. Okay, so what we can do is we can say employee equals validation context dot object instance as employee. We are sure that this is going to exist as long as we apply this attribute toward an employee class. Okay, and then once we have the employee object, we can say if employee is not now, right? You can use this, or you can say is not now. This is clearer if you're not very familiar with C#, or you hate C# syntax, then you can do this. Now, in this case, if the employee is not, well, let's fix the spelling error here. So employee. Okay, so string is null or white space. So if the employee is not null and at the same time the position is not empty, and at the same time if the employee's position equals to manager, and we can specify the string comparison ordinal ignore case. So in this case, it's case insensitive comparison. In this case, we're gonna double check. I'm going to double check the employee salary. So if the salary is lower than 100,000, what are we going to do? We're going to return an error. So we're going to say return new validation result, and then we specify the error message. So manager's salary, or maybe let's use proper English. So a manager's salary has to be greater or equal $100,000, something like that. Otherwise, we're gonna say validation result dot success. Again, we have some spelling error here. Let's fix it. I'm sorry about that. Replace all of this with the correct word. Okay, so once we have this custom validation attribute, we can apply it as if we're applying any other built-in validation attribute. Okay, so let's go to program.cs. This is where we have our employee class here, and we're going to apply this to the salary property because we're actually validating the salary, right? Someone input a number in the salary, and we say that, hey, this is wrong because the position is manager, so your salary cannot be lower than 100,000. Okay, so that's why we apply this over here. And then with this, and remember, very importantly, we need to specify the with parameters validation over here, right? And with the custom validation attribute, and with the minimal APIs.extension package installed, and with this function or method applied here, let's run it, and it should just work as any other built-in validation attribute. Okay, so obviously we need to use Postman to post something to the body. The port number we already corrected, and here if we add Tom Anderson as a developer and we specify, let's say salary is 80,000, we should be able to do it, and the return message is employee is added successfully. That's correct. And let's change the ID to 5, and here I'm going to say Tom Jerry Anderson, and if I change developer to manager and keep the salary at a low salary here at 80,000, we're going to see, oh, it says employee is added successfully. Is it because we forgot to click on the run button? Maybe the new code is not applied. So let's try to do that again. And then let's go over here and try to click on this. It still says employee is added successfully. So what is going on here? Let's actually debug. Okay, let's go over here, click on this debug button, and we have our application running. Go over here, click on send button. Now we have it over here. So this attribute is actually triggered. Now let's step over here. Do we have the employee? Yes, we do have employee. Okay, and if employee is not now, oh, I see. Something is wrong right here. If it's not null or white space, then we go over to the next. Okay, so there's something wrong. This time, I think we don't need this debug anymore. Let's run it again. And let's go over here. And this actually changed it to number 4 because we just run it again. So we don't have 4 employees. We only have 3 initial employees. So click on send. Now we see this status code 400, bad request. Error is a manager's salary has to be greater or equal to $100,000. This is the correct message. So let's fix this. Let's say this guy makes 180,000 and click on send. Now we see employee is added successfully. So this is how you use validation attribute to combine different properties and have slightly more complex validations against a property. And if you have any questions, please let me know. If not, I will see you in the next one.